opening sequence of Rush Hour 3 is not a quiet plea in a dark room, but a burst of frantic, choreographed chaos on a sunlit Los Angeles freeway. A diplomatic motorcade is attacked. The Chinese ambassador is shot, and the familiar, mismatched duo of Inspector Lee and Detective Carter are thrust back into a world of international intrigue and comedic friction. This moment, this explosive callback, is the engine of a very different cinematic enterprise. Released in 2007, the film represents not a risky artistic gamble, but a calculated, high-capital exploitation of a proven global franchise formula. The production budget, a hefty $140 million approximate, was a direct investment in a known commodity. The box office chemistry between Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. This capital was not allocated for profound emotional engineering or groundbreaking technology. It was earmarked for global location shooting, Los Angeles, Paris, elaborate stunt sequences, escalating star salaries, and the expectation of reliable, diminishing returns profit. The risk here was not of artistic failure, but franchise fatigue. The danger that the third installment of a buddy cop series, arriving 6 years after the last, might feel like a contractual obligation rather than a creative necessity. This is the story we decode. Not a masterpiece's creation, but a blockbuster product's efficient assembly and global market deployment. We must frame this film not as a crime story, but as a case study in the economics of the comedy action franchise and the psychology of audience expectation. The plot is a functional delivery system for set pieces and banter. After the attempt on the ambassador's life, Lee and Carter pursue a secret trial list that leads them from Los Angeles to the streets of Paris. Their investigation intertwines with Lee's personal history and a mysterious femme fatale, but narrative cohesion is secondary to the rhythm of jokes and fights. The film exists to service the established dynamic. Carter's fast-talking, culturally arrogant American bravado colliding with Lee's more reserved, physically graceful Hong Kong professionalism. This is a product's core IP, intellectual property, and the $140 million budget is largely spent to keep this IP operational and visually upgraded for a mid-2000s audience. The film's value proposition is comfort and consistency. It asks the audience to invest not in suspense or character growth, but in the familiar pleasure of watching Chan and Tucker navigate exotic locales and cartoonish villains with their trademark blend of martial arts and motor-mouth humor. The industry context of 2007 is crucial. This was the twilight of the traditional, star-driven, high-budget comedy action franchise before superhero universes fully consolidated market dominance. New Line Cinema, the studio behind the film, was relying on established properties like this and The Lord of the Rings to compete. The financial logic was global. Jackie Chan's immense appeal across Asia and Chris Tucker's star power after a long hiatus in the domestic market created a dual revenue stream engine. The shooting location in Paris was not just a plot point. It was a strategic market expansion move, adding European scenic appeal and leveraging the city's iconic backdrop to freshen the franchise's visual palette. The marketing campaign would heavily feature the Eiffel Tower and Parisian avenues, selling the film as a glamorous, global romp. The technological context is also telling. While Chan's practical stunts remained a selling point, the film embraced the era's growing reliance on CGI for expansive shots and certain action enhancements, a shift from the raw, practical feel of the original Rush Hour. The film's opening, then, is a masterclass in franchise reactivation engineering. It must immediately reestablish the brand identity. We get Carter, now a traffic officer, hilariously and incompetently directing chaos. A visual joke about his demotion that immediately taps into his character's legacy. We get Lee, poised and professional, arriving on the scene. Within minutes, they are bickering in the exact rhythm fans remember. The attempted assassination provides a MacGuffin, the triad list, a plot device so generic it signals the film's priorities are not a twisty narrative, but the journey. This setup is efficient in a corporate sense. It checks boxes: action, comedy, character reintroduction, and plot ignition. It makes no demands for emotional depth or complex motivation. Its success is measured in how quickly it returns the audience to comfortable, known dynamic, like rebooting a favorite piece of software with a slightly updated interface. So, as we begin this deep dive into Rush Hour 3, we are not conducting a forensic audit of a cinematic revolution. We are performing a product teardown of a major studio franchise entry. We will examine how a $140 million budget is allocated across star salaries, global logistics, and action set pieces. We will dissect the technology of stunt coordination and comedic timing in an aging franchise. We will map the behavioral economics of joke, recycling, and audience nostalgia. We will analyze the production management of a major shoot across 2 continents and the marketing strategy for a sequel in a potentially saturated market. We will explore the critical reception that often greets such endeavors and the final box office verdict that determines a franchise's lifespan. Rush Hour 3 is a masterclass in industrial filmmaking, the careful, expensive, and often creatively risk-averse process of extending a profitable brand. Let us now follow the trail from LA traffic to the Parisian rooftops, not in search of profound truth, but to understand the machinery that produces a globally consumable 2-hour package of familiar laughter. And the first half of Rush Hour 3 operates as a franchise revival playbook, methodically reactivating its core comedic and action systems with the precision of a factory reset. After the freeway attack, the narrative's primary function is to move its key assets, Chan and Tucker, from their familiar starting positions into the new, high-value location of Paris. This movement is not driven by deep mystery, but by a straightforward MacGuffin chase. The wounded Ambassador Han gives Lee a clue about a secret triad list, a device whose sole purpose is to justify transcontinental travel and provide a vague through line for the action. The film immediately leverages this to re-establish the duo's dysfunctional partnership. Carter, having been demoted to traffic duty for the events of the previous film, is brought back into the fold not through procedural necessity, but through Lee's personal request and a bureaucratic loophole. This plot point is a light meta-commentary on franchise logic. The team must get back together because the audience paid to see them together, and any narrative excuse, however thin, will suffice. Their reintroduction is a series of nostalgic callbacks and rhythm reestablishment. The banter in the hospital, the bicker in the car. These are less original scenes and more quality assurance checks, verifying that the product's core feature, the Chan-Tucker chemistry, is still operational after a 6-year hiatus. The investigation's initial phase in Los Angeles is a brisk series of action comedy, vignettes designed to deliver the franchise's expected payloads early. The sequence in the Kung Fu studio, the Heavenly Palace, is a prime example. It serves a dual purpose, providing Jackie Chan with an environment for his trademark improvised weaponry and physical comedy, using ladders, mannequins, and environmental props, while giving Chris Tucker a platform for his brand of cowardly yet lucky interference and cultural misinterpretation. The fight is not about raising stakes. It's about demonstrating that the star's physical capital, though diminished from his youth, is still a viable asset. The comedy is broad and situational, deriving from Tucker's character being out of his depth and Chan's character being exasperated by him. This is the film's emotional engineering in its simplest form. The audience is meant to feel the comfort of recognition, the mild thrill of competent action choreography, and the steady rhythm of familiar comedic conflict. The plot information gleaned, a lead point to Paris, is merely the coupon that allows the film to redeem its location budget. The journey to Paris marks the first half's major logistical and narrative pivot, a shift from domestic franchise maintenance to international brand extension. The scenes on the airplane continue the comedic routine, Carter's fear of flying, his attempts to speak French, in a contained setting, further investing in character interaction over plot. Upon arrival, the film fully embraces its role as a glamorous travelogue. The first views of Paris are postcard shots, selling the location's aesthetic value. The investigation leads them to a cabaret club, a setting ripe for both action, Chan navigating a backstage brawl, and comedy, Tucker attempting to sing and dance in the review, a set piece that purely services Tucker's star persona. This segment highlights the production's allocation of capital. The money is on the screen in the form of iconic locations, large sets like the cabaret, and crowds of extras. The narrative urgency is low. The priority is situating the stars in visually appealing, franchise-appropriate scenarios where they can perform their shtick against a fresh backdrop. The introduction of new characters, the mysterious Genevieve and the relentless assassin Kenji, is handled with minimal complexity. They are functional archetypes, the plot device with a secret and the formidable physical obstacle. The first half-central conflict crystallizes around a classic franchise trope, the protection of a key witness. Genevieve, who knows the location of the triad list, becomes the duo's charge. This creates the necessary dramatic pretext to keep them together and in constant motion, while also generating standard-issue protective action sequences. The car chase through Paris, while competently executed, feels like a product of generic action budget allocation rather than inspired necessity. It features the required beats, narrow misses collateral damage, Tucker's screaming commentary, all staged against famous monuments. It is engineered for international appeal, showcasing Paris in a state of benign, cinematic destruction. The chase ends with their car launching into the River Seine, a costly stunt that delivers a spectacle moment, a tangible return on the film's financial investment in large-scale physical production. As the first half concludes, the film has successfully executed its primary business objectives. It has relocated its assets to the premium international location. It has delivered the required quota of martial art scuffles and comedic exchanges. It has introduced a simple, serviceable plot with clear villains and a protected target. The emotional stakes are franchise-typical. Lee's personal honor is lightly engaged through a connection to the triad leader, but Carter's motivation remains purely professional and comedic. The chemistry between the leads, the product's core selling point, has been thoroughly tested and confirmed. All systems are now primed for the second half, which will not escalate complexity, but rather amplify the scale and silliness of the set pieces. The narrative pipeline is clear. Pursue the list of the Eiffel Tower, confront the villain in a spectacular location, and resolve everything with a blend of fistfights and one-liners. The first half of Rush Hour 3 functions as a reliable, if uninspired, delivery mechanism, ensuring the audience receives exactly the product they purchased, no more, no less, setting the stage for the payoff of bigger stunts and broader jokes in the final act. The second half of Rush Hour 3 is a dedicated escalation of spectacle and silliness, a conscious trade where narrative coherence is fully exchanged for set-piece expansion and comedic indulgence. The pursuit of the triad list leads Lee and Carter to the film's most iconic visual equity, the Eiffel Tower. This is not a subtle narrative turn. It is a blatant deployment of location budget, ensuring the film's poster and marketing have their most recognizable backdrop for the climax. The sequence within the tower is a series of action comedy beats engineered for maximum tourist board appeal mixed with physical gags. Carter's fear of heights is played for broad laughs, while Chan navigates the girders with a competence that is impressive but feels routine for the franchise. The confrontation with Kenji the assassin on the elevators and beams is the physical apex of the film's action investment. It is a classic Jackie Chan scenario, using a unique restrictive environment for combat, but it carries a sense of contractual obligation, a necessary demonstration of the star's enduring, if carefully managed, physical capital. The list is recovered, but true to the film's lightweight nature, it immediately becomes a prop for further chase and conflict rather than a source of genuine intrigue. The middle act of the second half delves deeper into pure comedic diversion. often at the expense of momentum. The extended sequence where Carter pretends to be a United Nations interpreter is a prime example. It is a showcase purely for Chris Tucker's improvisational motor mouth style, allowing him to riff on international diplomats and create chaotic, nonsensical translations. The scene's function is to deliver a full comedy set piece, a standalone sketch that highlights Tucker's star persona. Its connection to the plot is tenuous at best, serving mainly to get the duo captured, so they can escape and propel themselves toward the final confrontation. This reflects the film's economic priorities. The allocation of screen time is based on star utility and guaranteed laugh delivery, not narrative efficiency. The subsequent escape from the triad's stronghold continues this theme, pairing Chan's methodical fight choreography with Tucker's frantic, lucky interventions. The emotional stakes remain flat. We are not worried for their safety, but simply waiting to see the inventive way Chan will dispatch henchmen or Tucker will deliver a punchline. The film then makes a gesture toward personal stakes by revealing a thin connection between the main villain, Ratner, and Lee's past. This revelation is handled with minimal gravity. It is a narrative token, a small attempt to give Lee a reason to care beyond professional duty. However, the film undercuts any potential drama almost immediately with a joke, refusing to let sincerity linger. This is a critical psychological choice of the franchise. It maintains a product-consistent tone of levity, ensuring the audience is never asked to shift emotional gears. The relationship between Lee and the ambiguous Genevieve is similarly shallow, a perfunctory nod to romance that exists because the genre template suggests it should, not because the film has invested in its development. These half-hearted dramatic threads exist only to provide a veneer of motivation for the final, large-scale action sequence. That final sequence is the film's ultimate capital expenditure, a protracted battle at the Parisian Theatre de la Ville. The location is grand, allowing for a multi-level fight incorporating the stage, catwalks, and audience seating. Kenji and Reynard are dispatched in separate confrontations that play to each hero's strength. Kenji's defeat is a pure martial arts duel for Chan, emphasizing technique and resilience. Reynard's defeat is a more chaotic, gadget-assisted brawl involving Carter, leaning into comedy and absurdity, like the use of a giant French flag as a weapon. The scale is larger than anything in the first half, fulfilling the sequel's promise of more. Yet, the emotional payoff is minimal. The victory feels inevitable and consequence-free. The triad plot is neutralized, but the world of the film is so cartoonish that the resolution carries no weight. The final beats are purely comedic and nostalgic. Carter receiving a medal and bungling the ceremony, followed by a blooper reel set to Jackie Chan's trademark end credits outtakes. This choice is a direct appeal to franchise loyalty, reminding the audience of the behind-the-scenes camaraderie and the star's famed risk-taking, a final injection of brand-affirming authenticity. In totality, the second half of Rush Hour 3 successfully executes its commercial function. It delivers escalated action in iconic locations, maximizes the comedic screen time of its expensive stars, and provides a simple, morally unambiguous conclusion. It does not challenge, surprise, or deepen. It fulfills. The risk of franchise fatigue is addressed not by innovation, but by adherence to formula and an increase in production value. The transformation here is not character, but a location, from L.A. to Paris, and of scale. The partnership between Lee and Carter ends exactly as it began, a functional, bickering duo with unchanged worldviews. The narrative's return on the audience's emotional investment is the comfort of predictability and the spectacle of stars doing what they are paid to do. The final shot of them walking away, arguing amiably, is less a resolution and more a freeze frame on a product that is still operational, ready to be rebooted should the market ever signal demand. The second half confirms that this is not a film about a journey, but a delivery, a reliable, high-cost delivery of a familiar entertainment product to a global market. The psychology of Rush Hour 3 is a study in minimalism and commercial calculation, not depth or transformation. The characters operate on fixed, simplistic behavioral loops designed for maximum comedic and situational yield, with no ambition for internal growth. Inspector Lee's psychology is that of the consummate, slightly weary professional. His motivation is a flat line of duty and personal honor, lightly tinged by a vague past connection to the villain that the script mentions but does not explore. He exhibits patience, competence, and a persistent, low-grade exasperation with Carter. There is no conflict within Lee, no moral dilemma, no trauma that genuinely shapes his actions beyond providing a pretext for the final fight. His psychology is a tool to enable action sequences and to serve as the straight man in the comedic partnership. He is a stable platform, an emotional constant against which Carter's chaos can bounce. His decision-making is purely reactive to plot obstacles, and his behavioral economics are simple. Apply skill and discipline to solve the physical puzzle in front of him. The film makes no investment in his inner life. His value is purely functional and physical. Detective James Carter's psychology is the film's primary comedic engine, a caricature built on a foundation of arrogance, cowardice, and accidental brilliance. His behavioral loop is predictable. He enters a situation with overconfidence, meets a threat that triggers his cowardice, and then extricates himself through a combination of luck, unexpected skill, or clinging to Lee. His motivation is almost entirely extrinsic: to regain his detective badge, to impress women, to avoid pain. There is no introspection. His cultural arrogance and ignorance are played purely for laughs, not as flaws to be examined or overcome. This is a psychology of ID, with the superego, represented by Lee, constantly present to clean up the mess. Carter's value to the film's economics is clear. He delivers the jokes. He embodies the audience's perspective of being out of his depth in a world of international intrigue and martial arts, and he provides a source of constant friction that generates the franchise's signature banner. His psychology is not meant to be analyzed. It is meant to be laughed at, a consistent and reliable source of comedic capital. The supporting characters exist as psychological plot functions. Genevieve is the archetype of the mysterious woman with a secret. Her psychology is opaque, her motivations shifting with the needs of the scene, from potential betrayer to damsel in distress. She serves as a visual asset and a narrative token, not a person. Kenji, the assassin, embodies the psychology of silent, relentless efficiency. He is a robot of vengeance, a pure obstacle with no backstory beyond a brief mention of a brother Lee killed. Ratner, the main villain, operates with a simplistic psychology of greedy ambition. He wants power and money. There is no complexity, no compelling ideology, no tragic dimension. He is a placeholder antagonist, a necessary piece on the board to be knocked over. Ambassador Han and Director Revy represent bureaucratic authority, their psychology limited to dignified concern and procedural frustration. None of these characters have arcs. They have roles. The psychology of the partnership itself is the film's only relational dynamic of note, and it is fundamentally static. It is built on the classic odd couple framework: order versus chaos, reserve versus expression, east versus west. The film's entire emotional payload, such as it is, rests on the audience's fondness for this dynamic from previous installments. The psychology at play is one of tolerant, begrudging symbiosis. Lee tolerates Carter's nonsense because Carter, against all odds, gets results and provides a chaotic energy that sometimes unlocks situations. Carter depends on Lee's competence for his survival and professional rehabilitation. This is not a relationship that deepens. It reaffirms its existing boundaries. Their arguments are circular, their reconciliations instantaneous. The film carefully avoids any real rupture or emotional vulnerability that would require growth. The partnership psychology is a perfected commercial product, consistent, reliable, and engineered to deliver a specific, familiar emotional response. the comfort of unchanging camaraderie amidst cartoon danger. Finally, the collective psychology of the film projects onto its audience is one of passive, undemanding consumption. It assumes the viewer seeks distraction, not engagement, recognition, not surprise, comfort, not challenge. The film's construction actively discourages deeper psychological investment. Jokes undercut any moment of potential tension or sentiment. Threats are never truly threatening. The lavish locations are aspirational eye candy, not environments charged with meaning. This calculated approach is a direct reflection of its financial risk profile. A $140 million global product cannot afford to alienate any segment of its broad target market with ambiguity, complexity, or genuine discomfort. Therefore, the psychology on screen is universally broad, simple, and safe. It is a psychology of immediacy, of the next punchline, the next stunt, the next pretty view. In the behavioral economics of franchise filmmaking, Rush Hour 3 understands its audience's currency is time and attention, and it spends its capital to purchase that attention with the most reliable, least challenging psychological tokens available. Familiar faces, familiar conflicts, and a guaranteed, if shallow, return on laughter. The financial architecture of Rush Hour 3 is a textbook example of late-stage franchise economics, where escalating star salaries and production value are wagered against the law of diminishing returns. The production budget ballooned to a reported $140 million, a massive leap from the $33 million of the original Rush Hour and the $90 million of Rush Hour 2. This capital allocation reflects key market realities. A significant portion was consumed by above-the-line costs, most notably the salaries of the two leads. Chris Tucker, after his hiatus and leveraging the franchise's success, commanded a fee in the range of $25 million, plus percentage of the gross. Jackie Chan, a global star and producer on the film, also commanded a salary in the tens of millions. This represented a direct transfer of the franchise's past profit into the pockets of its stars, a common feature of sequel economics, where the talent captures more of the value they help create. The remaining budget was allocated to the film's primary upgrade, location and scale. Shooting extensively in Paris, with associated logistical costs, permits, and the construction/rental of large sets like the cabaret and the theater, was a major expense. The action sequences, including the car chase through Paris and the Eiffel Tower fight, required complex coordination, stunt teams, and visual effects augmentation, all contributing to the high price tag. The marketing and distribution spend for a film of this scale likely added another $60 to $80 million globally, pushing the total investment toward or above $200 million. The marketing campaign leaned heavily on the established brand and the allure of Paris. Trailers and posters featured the iconic duo against the Eiffel Tower, promising a bigger, glossier, and more European adventure. The campaign targeted both the domestic audience, nostalgic for the Tucker-Chan chemistry, and the international market, where Chan's appeal and the Parisian setting were strong draws. The release strategy was a global day-and-date rollout in August 2007, aiming to capture the late summer blockbuster season worldwide. The financial pressure was intense. Using the standard 2.5x multiplier rule to account for marketing and theater shares, Rush Hour 3 likely needed to gross approximately $500 million worldwide just to break even. This is the immense financial risk of a third installment. The costs have inflated, the novelty is worn thin, and the required box office for profitability becomes a much higher mountain to climb. The box office performance tells the story of a franchise hitting its commercial ceiling. Domestically, the film opened with a strong but not spectacular $49.1 million weekend, indicating solid fan turnout. However, it displayed weak staying power, suffering a steep 55% drop in its second weekend, a classic sign of front-loaded franchise fatigue and mediocre word of mouth. It finished its domestic run with approximately $140.1 million. Its international performance was stronger, as expected, pulling in about $122.5 million. The worldwide total landed at $258 million, approximate. Analyzing this against our break-even estimate reveals the problem. A $258 million gross against a likely total cost of $200+ million means a film probably barely scraped into profitability from its theatrical run, if it reached profitability at all. The massive star salaries and production costs ate deeply into the margin. This performance, while still a large number, represented a significant decline from Rush Hour 2's $347 million global haul, confirming the diminished returns. The ancillary revenue streams became critical for turning a possible theatrical loss into overall profit. The home video market in 2007 was still robust. DVD sales and rentals would have provided a significant revenue injection, often with higher profit margins than theatrical. Television licensing deals, pay TV, network, and later basic cable provided a steady, long-term annuity. The film's brand recognition ensured it would be a recurring asset in these markets. Merchandising, while not a primary driver for this franchise, would have included soundtrack sales and other licensed products. However, the sheer weight of the upfront cost meant that the downstream revenue, while helpful, was likely servicing a much larger debt than previous installments. The film's financial performance effectively put the franchise on ice for over a decade. The ROI simply did not justify the risk of a fourth film at a similar budget level. The long-term financial legacy of Rush Hour 3 is as a cautionary case study in franchise cost disease. It demonstrated that there is a limit to how much capital can be poured into a formula before the returns diminish to a point of marginal profitability. The film's economics highlight the tension between star power and value. While Tucker and Chan were the franchise, their increased compensation directly threatened the project's bottom line. The decision set the film in Paris, while aesthetically pleasing, added enormous costs without a guaranteed proportional increase in audience appeal. The film ultimately succeeded in moving a large amount of money to the global entertainment system, providing paychecks to thousands of crew members and profits to various distributors. But as a pure investment, it likely represented the point where the Rush Hour series transitioned from a high-margin property to a low-margin one. Its financials sent a clear market signal. This particular brand of comedy action had reached its natural conclusion under the existing economic model, making any future revival contingent on a radically restructured financial approach. The filmmaking technology of Rush Hour 3 is a study in polished, industrial-grade competency, employing a suite of reliable tools to deliver a globally palatable product without aesthetic risk or groundbreaking innovation. This is not a film that sought to revolutionize cinematography or editing. It sought to execute a proven formula with high production values. The technological mandate was clarity, pace, and spectacle. Cinematographer J. Michael Murrow, collaborating with director Brett Ratner, employed a clean, modern style characterized by saturated colors, even lighting, and fluid camera movement. The visual approach is the antithesis of the chiaroscuro of The Godfather. Here, everything is brightly lit and visible, from the sun-drenched L.A. freeways to the neon-lit Parisian streets and cabarets. This reflects the film's psychological tone. There are no moral shadows, only clear-cut heroes and villains. The camera work is dynamic during action, utilizing Steadicam and dolly shots to follow the choreography, and stable during comedy, using conventional coverage to ensure the punchlines land. The technology here is in service of effortless viewability, creating a visually frictionless experience that never challenges or distracts from the primary commodities: star performance and action choreography. The core technological asset and the film's primary claim to a unique selling proposition remain Jackie Chan's approach to action design and stunt coordination. However, By 2007, this technology had to be carefully managed. Chan was 53 during filming, and while still remarkably fit, the days of the reckless, youth-driven stunts of his Hong Kong peak were over. The film's action engineering, therefore, represents a hybrid model. Chan and his team, including veteran stunt coordinator and fight choreographer Brad Allen, designed sequences that maximize Chan's agility, comic timing, and use of environment while strategically employing doubles, wire work, and CGI for the most dangerous or impossible moments. The Eiffel Tower fight uses careful editing, perspective, and likely a stunt double for the most extreme wide shots. The technology was one of preservation and illusion, maintaining the brand's association with death-defying stunts while mitigating the real-world risk to its aging star. The fights are crisp, well choreographed, and entertaining, but they lack the raw, visceral, insurance-defying authenticity that defined Chan's earlier work. This is a technology of franchise maintenance, not revolution. The film's use of digital effects represents its embrace of early 21st century blockbuster norms. While grounded in practical stunts, the film liberally uses CGI for environmental enhancement, scale, and certain action beats. The car chase through Paris features digital extensions of crowds and buildings, and the final plunge of the car into Seine is a digital effect. The sweeping aerial shots of Paris are digitally polished postcard views. This technological layer is applied to achieve a level of spectacle and seamlessness that practical effect alone could not provide at a reasonable cost or schedule. It is also a concession to modern audience expectations. By 2007, audiences were accustomed to the slick, composite look of CGI-heavy action films. The sound design follows a similar principle of amplified reality. Fist impacts, car crashes, and gunshots are hyperreal, mixed for maximum visceral punch in a theater sound system. The technology is aimed at sensory stimulation, not subtlety. The editing pipeline, managed by Mark Helfrich and Dean Zimmerman, is engineered for comedic and kinetic rhythm. The film employs a rapid cutting style during action sequences, though not as frenetic as a post-born norm, still allowing the viewer to appreciate the choreography. For the comedy, edits are timed precisely to maximize the laugh, often cutting to a reaction shot of Chan after a Tucker punchline. The film structure itself is a product of editorial technology designed for audience retention. A major set piece or comedic beat arrives at regular intervals, following a predictable rhythm that feels focus group tested. The post-production technology also enabled the global product's final form. Digital intermediates for color grading ensure the glossy, vibrant look and sound mixing balance Tucker's rapid-fire dialogue with effects and the score. Perhaps the most telling technological aspect is the film's use of location as a visual effect in itself. Paris is not just a setting. It is a massive practical visual asset. The production's ability to secure permits to shoot on the Champs-Élysées, at the Eiffel Tower, and in other iconic locations was a logistical and diplomatic technology. These real-world backdrops provided production value that no soundstage or digital matte painting could fully replicate, giving the film a tangible, tourist-friendly glamour. This represents a different kind of capital allocation, spending money on access and authenticity of place rather than on purely digital creation. In totality, the filmmaking technology of Rush Hour 3 is a portfolio of safe, reliable choices. It uses cutting-edge tools for polish and scale, venerable techniques for star-driven action and comedy, and the timeless technology of an exotic location to freshen a tired formula. It is a masterclass in professional, risk-averse execution, where every technological decision is made in service of protecting the franchise's market position and delivering a competent, undemanding, and broadly appealing consumer product. The production management of Rush Hour 3 was a high-stakes logistical operation focused on wrangling costly star schedules, coordinating a transcontinental shoot, and maintaining a precarious balance between creative aspiration and the blunt financial imperatives of a $140 million franchise product. The core managerial challenge was reactivating a dormant property with its original, now astronomically expensive, stars. Producer Arthur Sarkisian and director Brett Ratner's primary task was to align the interests of Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker, and the studio New Line Cinema into a workable schedule and budget framework. Tucker's notorious hiatus and selective project choices made his commitment a major variable requiring negotiation and financial persuasion. Chan's global star status and his own production company, JC Movies Limited, many operated as both a key asset and a stakeholder with significant creative and financial input. This above-the-line management was a delicate dance of egos, contracts, and back-end percentages that consumed immense capital and planning energy before a single frame was shot. The logistical management of the shoot, spanning Los Angeles and Paris, was a feat of international coordination. Paris, while offering immense production value, presented a dense web of bureaucratic and practical hurdles. Securing permits to shoot action sequences involving car chases on the Champs-Élysées and fights on the Eiffel Tower required navigating French officials, local police, and strict union rules. The production had to manage the transport and housing of a large crew and a significant amount of equipment across the Atlantic. The schedule had to be meticulously crafted to maximize the use of the Parisian locations, which were often available only for limited windows and at great expense. Managing crowd control for public shoots in a city like Paris added another layer of complexity and potential risk. Every day in Paris cost tens of thousands of dollars in location fees, crew wages, and star per diems, making schedule adherence a direct financial imperative. A day lost to weather or logistical snafu would represent a significant budget overage. The management of the film's core asset, the action and comedy, required its own specialized oversight. Jackie Chan's stunt team, led by Brad Allen, operated as a semi-autonomous unit within the production. Their work had to be meticulously planned and rehearsed to ensure safety and efficiency, especially given Chan's age and the film's insurance liabilities. Coordinating these complex stunts within the tight schedules of the Parisian locations was a constant logistical puzzle. Similarly, managing the comedic content involved accommodating Chris Tucker's improvisational style. While this could generate usable material, it also meant scenes could run long, coverage could be unpredictable, and the editorial process would later have to sift through hours of riffing to find the best takes. This required a flexible but firm directorial and producing hand to keep the comedy focused enough to stay on schedule, while still allowing the star the creative space he expected. Studio oversight and financial control were omnipresent pressures. New Line Cinema, having greenlit the massive budget, would have had executives and production accountants embedded with the crew, tracking daily costs against a plan. The escalating budget from previous installments meant tolerance for overages was low. Reports from the set indicated tensions, particularly around the ballooning costs of the Paris shoot and the demands of the stars. The production management team's role was to buffer the creative talent from this pressure, while simultaneously enforcing enough discipline to deliver the film within the financial parameters. This often meant making difficult compromises, scaling back a secondary action beat, simplifying a location move, or cutting a planned scene to preserve the funds for the non-negotiable marquee sequences like the Eiffel Tower fight. Post-production management faced the critical task of assembling a coherent product from a mountain of footage, especially Tucker's improvised dialogue, and integrating the visual effects. The edit was crucial in finding the pacing that would satisfy the franchise's action comedy rhythm. Furthermore, the film's global appeal required careful management of its international elements. The score, featuring a blend of traditional Hollywood orchestration and cues that played to both American and Asian sensibilities, needed oversight. The marketing and distribution pipeline, managed by New Line's parent company Warner Brothers, began its work in parallel, with the production team providing assets and managing approvals for trailers and promotional material featuring the costly stars. In the end, The production management of Rush Hour 3 was a successful exercise in brute force logistics and stakeholder diplomacy. It delivered a physically massive film on time and reportedly very close to its initial budget, a minor miracle given the elements involved. However, this managerial triumph in logistics could not offset the fundamental creative and financial risk of the venture itself, proving that flawless execution of a flawed business model still leads to a product of marginal profitability and diminished cultural impact. The pursuit of authenticity in Rush Hour 3 is a fascinatingly narrow endeavor, focused almost exclusively on the superficial texture of its locations and the surface-level mechanics of its action, while displaying profound disinterest in cultural, procedural, or historical accuracy. The film's primary claim to authenticity lies in its use of real Parisian landmarks. The Eiffel Tower, the Champs-Élysées, the Seine, these are not sets or digital recreations, but genuine locations. This provides a tactile, travelogue legitimacy that grounds the film's otherwise cartoonish events in a recognizable, glamorous reality. For the average viewer, this location authenticity sells a fantasy. You are watching a globe-trotting adventure that feels connected to the real world, even if the events occurring there are pure fiction. The production's ability to shoot in these places represents a significant financial and logistical investment, and that investment is worn as a badge of production value. It says, "This is a major film, even if the script is minor." The Parisian Cabaret, while a generic depiction of such venues, has a certain atmospheric authenticity in its design and extras, contributing to the film's sense of place. Beyond geography, the film gestures toward a specific kind of insider authenticity through Jackie Chan's continued, albeit moderated, commitment to practical action. While heavily assisted by wires, doubles, and CGI, the core of the fight choreography retains a physics and a cause-and-effect logic rooted in Chan's Hong Kong filmmaking heritage. The use of environmental props, ladders, mannequins, stage machinery feels like a callback to his classic style. For fans of action cinema, this provides a layer of credible, genre-specific authenticity. It's not the brutal realism of a Bourne film, but operates within an established and respected comedic action tradition. This is professional authenticity. It demonstrates that the people making the action sequences know the craft, even if they are operating under the constraints of a big Hollywood budget and an aging star. However, the film's relationship with cultural and procedural accuracy is one of cheerful, often stereotypical disregard. The portrayal of French culture is a collection of cliches: rude waiters, snooty ambassadors, romantic cabarets, and characters named Genevieve. The French police and intelligence services are depicted as either ineffectual or corrupt, a standard trope in American action cinema that allows the American and Hong Kong heroes to be the sole competent authorities. The triad mythology is pure Hollywood concoction, a secret list that grants control over all criminal syndicates, a plot device so generic and fantastical it bears no resemblance to any criminal reality. The film makes no attempt to explore the actual complexities of international law enforcement cooperation. Interpol and the UN are merely backdrops for jokes and bureaucratic obstacles. This is not an oversight. It is a deliberate choice. Accuracy in these areas would introduce complexity, moral ambiguity, and pacing issues that would conflict with the film's primary goals of delivering simple conflict and easy laughs. The film's treatment of its own characters' continuity is similarly lax, representing a form of narrative inaccuracy. While it references events from the previous films, Carter's demotion leaves history with the triads. It does so inconsistently and without depth. The emotional or professional consequences of past adventures are wiped clean or reduced to a single joke. The characters have not learned or meaningfully changed. This is a form of psychological inaccuracy, but it serves the franchise's need for reset. Each film must present the duo in roughly the same dynamic, so past growth must be ignored. The film is authentic not to life or to its own fictional history, but to the demands of the franchise formula. It accurately replicates the expected beats, tones, and relationship dynamics from Rush Hour and Rush Hour 2, even if that replication feels mechanical. In the final analysis, Rush Hour 3's approach to accuracy is purely utilitarian and commercial. It leverages the authentic glamour of Paris and the authentic stunt craft of Jackie Chan to provide a credible sheen of quality and excitement. It then freely abandons any other form of accuracy in favor of stereotype, generic plotting, and character stasis to ensure the product is globally accessible, narratively frictionless, and tonally consistent with its predecessors. The educational value is zero. The film does not seek to inform or reflect reality. It seeks to provide an escape built on familiar, exaggerated tropes and spectacular visuals. Its success is not measured by its truthfulness, but by its efficiency in delivering a specific, undemanding type of entertainment. The film's authenticity is a veneer, a high-gloss, expensive veneer applied to a simple, mass-produced structure, proving that in blockbuster filmmaking, the appearance of authenticity, real locations, real stunts, can often be more valuable than authenticity of character, culture, or story. The cinematography of Rush Hour 3, led by J. Michael Murrow, operates on a philosophy of glossy, frictionless visibility, a direct visual counterpart to the film's narrative and comedic simplicity. This is not a world of psychological shadow or moral ambiguity. It is a world of primary colors, clean lines, and clearly defined space. Murrow's approach utilizes high-key lighting that eliminates mystery. Interiors, whether the sterile hospital, the vibrant cabaret, or the opulent theater, are evenly and brightly illuminated, ensuring every joke and every action beat is perfectly legible. The camera work is professional and assertive, favoring smooth dollies and steady cam movements that follow the action with a sports broadcast clarity. There is no destabilizing handheld shakiness to convey chaos. Even the car chase through Paris is shot with a polished, controlled dynamism. This creates a visual experience that is never challenging or disorienting. The audience is always positioned as a comfortable, omniscient observer, seeing exactly what they need to see to follow the plot and appreciate the stunts. This cinematography is a technology of audience management, prioritizing ease of consumption over artistic expression. Composition and framing are consistently conventional, serving to highlight the stars and the expensive locations. The film frequently uses medium two-shots for dialogue, keeping both Chan and Tucker in the frame to capture their reactive chemistry. In action sequences, the framing opens up to wide shots that showcase the choreography and the environment, especially during the Eiffel Tower and final theater fights. The iconic landmarks are often centered in the frame, functioning as postcard images that reinforce the production's geographic capital. Close-ups are reserved for punchlines and reaction shots, time for comedic impact rather than introspection. The visual geometry is simple and uncluttered. There are no complex Dutch angles or confining compositions. The frame is a window onto a bright, orderly, and colorful world where problems are physical and solutions are comedic or martial. This style is the antithesis of tension building. It assures the viewer that nothing truly dark or unpredictable will occur, visually reinforcing the film's safety as entertainment. The color science of the film is saturated and vibrant, contributing to its travelogue appeal and heightened reality. The Los Angeles scenes boast sunny, warm tones. Paris is rendered with particular emphasis on blues, golds, and deep reds, the colors of a romanticized European night. The cabaret sequence is a riot of saturated purples, pinks, and stage light gels. This palette is not subtle or symbolic. It is decorative and stimulating. It makes the film look expensive and lively, a visual treat that distracts from narrative thinness. The color grading in post-production ensures consistency across the global shoot, giving the entire film a unified, commercially friendly sheen. There is no visual degradation or desaturation to indicate grit or realism. The world of Rush Hour 3 is permanently polished, a hyper-real version of our own, designed for pleasurable viewing. Camera movement and lens selection are tools for pace and focus. Moro employs a mix of techniques. Smooth tracking shots that follow characters through environments, giving a sense of momentum and scale, rapid but controlled zooms during comedic moments to emphasize a reaction, and sweeping crane shots over Paris to establish location and spectacle. The lenses are typically clean and modern, avoiding any stylistic filtration that might date the image or introduce a sense of period. The focus is almost always deep, keeping both foreground action and background landmarks sharp, maximizing the value of the real locations. In the few moments intended for mild suspense, such as Kenji's silent approaches, the camera might move more slowly, but the lighting remains bright, undercutting any genuine sense of threat. The technology is one of consistent, energetic presentation, ensuring the viewer's eye is always engaged but never strained. Ultimately, the cinematography of Rush Hour 3 is a masterclass in high-budget conventionality. It executes all the standard techniques of a 2000 studio action comedy with flawless technical proficiency. It showcases its stars attractively. It makes its locations look dazzling and presents its action with clear, wide-shot respect. It is a visual style devoid of authorship or point of view, which is precisely its function. The film is not a director's or a cinematographer's statement. It is a delivery system for a branded product. The lighting, composition, color, and movement all serve to package that product in the most commercially appealing way possible. Bright, fast, colorful, and easy to digest. It is a visual equivalent of a luxury resort. Perfectly manicured, meticulously maintained, and completely artificial, designed to provide a consistently pleasant, undemanding experience from check-in to check-out. In the economy of the film's goals, this cinematography is a successful investment, providing a competent, attractive vessel for the market-tested commodities of star power and stage spectacle. The sound design and music production of Rush Hour 3 function as an energetic, non-stop stimulant package, engineered to maintain a consistent pitch of auditory excitement and comedic reinforcement without a moment of atmospheric silence or introspection. This oral landscape is a polar opposite of the minimalist, psychological soundscape of a film like The Godfather. Here, every moment is filled with layered noise. The constant hum of city traffic, the exaggerated swells of the score, the hyper-realistic crunch of impacts, and the relentless torrent of Chris Tucker's dialogue. Supervising sound editor Bruce Stambler and composer Lalo Schifrin, returning from the previous films, build a sonic world that is as broad, bright, and unsubtle as the cinematography. The investment in this dense soundscape is a commercial one. It ensures the audience's ears are as engaged as their eyes, leaving no room for boredom or distraction, and it directly supports the film's primary exports, action and comedy. Lalo Schifrin's score is a work of professional franchise maintenance. He reprises and varies his main Rush Hour theme, a brassy, jazzy piece with a driving rhythm that signals comedic adventure. The music is almost always present, acting as an emotional guide rail. During action sequences, it swells with orchestral urgency and percussive drive. During comedic moments, it adopts a lighter, more playful tone, often using staccato brass hits or whimsical woodwinds to punctuate jokes. For the Parisian settings, Schifrin incorporates occasional European flavors, a hint of accordion, a more romantic string melody. But these are shallow cultural garnishes, not deep integrations. The score's primary function is to keep energy levels high and to smoothen the transitions between comedy and action, ensuring the film's pacing feels brisk even when the plot meanders. It is effective, forgettable, and exactly what the product requires: a competent, energetic audio blanket. The sound design is crafted for maximum visceral impact and comic clarity. Fight scenes are a symphony of exaggerated Foley work. Every punch has a meaty thud, every kick a sharp swoosh, every broken object a crisp, shattering report. These sounds are amplified beyond realism into a cartoonish, satisfying hyperreality. The car chase is a dense collage of roaring engines, screeching tires, crashing metal, and Tucker's screaming commentary, all mixed with surgical precision to be thrilling but not chaotic. The technology here is about control and stimulation. The sound team uses a full dynamic range of the theater system to physically immerse the viewer in the action, but they always prioritize clarity so no joke or plot point is lost. Ambient sound is used not to create mood, but to sell location. The specific buzz of Parisian streets, the echo of the Eiffel Tower's metal grid, the muffled chatter of the cabaret audience. This is sonic set dressing, adding to the travelogue authenticity without adding narrative weight. The handling of dialogue, particularly Chris Tucker's performance, is a critical sonic engineering task. Tucker's delivery is fast, loud, and densely packed with improvisational riffs. The sound mix ensures his voice is always intelligible in foreground, even amidst chaos. His lines are often treated with a very slight presence boost, making them cut through the mix. This is a direct commercial choice. Tucker's comedy is a primary product feature, and the sound technology must guarantee its delivery. Similarly, Jackie Chan's lines, fewer and often delivered with less force, are given clear presence but are not pushed as aggressively. The contrast in their vocal treatments subtly reinforces their character dynamics. Carter's audio dominance mirrors his personality. The film also uses sound for blatant comedic punctuation, with classic wah-wah brass hits or record scratches, though sparingly, to underscore failed action or a joke. In its totality, the oral architecture of Rush Hour 3 is a masterpiece of commercial audio processing. It has no interest in silence, nuance, or emotional resonance beyond basic excitement and humor. Its success is measured in its ability to keep the audience auditorily engaged from start to finish, to make the action feel impactful, and to deliver every joke with perfect clarity. The music and sound effects are like a skilled hype man and a proficient Foley artist working in tandem, constantly reinforcing the image on screen with a wall of stimulating noise. There is no theme that haunts you, no ambient sound that lingers. The experience ends when speakers go silent. This approach perfectly matches the film's financial and creative imperatives. It is a high-capital, high-energy sonic product designed for global multiplexes, where its role is not to provoke thought or feeling, but to reliably fill the space between laughs and gasps with professional, polished, and perpetually upbeat noise. The marketing strategy for Rush Hour 3 was a textbook exercise in franchise leveraging designed to reignite audience awareness for a dormant property and justify its massive $140 million production budget through global saturation. The campaign's central pillar was nostalgia and escalation. All promotional materials hammered the return of the iconic duo Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, promising their chemistry was back and bigger than ever. The primary visual motif was a pairing of the stars against a new, premium backdrop of Paris, with the Eiffel Tower featuring prominently in posters and trailers. This communicated the core value proposition. The familiar banter and action, now upgraded with a glamorous European setting and presumably larger set pieces. The marketing capital was deployed across a massive multi-platform blitz in the summer of 2007, targeting the film's dual demographic. Domestic audiences who remember the first two films in the international market, particularly in Asia and Europe, drawn by Chan and the Parisian locale. The pre-release campaign focused heavily on selling spectacle and star power. Trailers were cut to a frenetic pace, showcasing the biggest laughs, mostly Tucker's one-liners, and the most impressive action beats, the Eiffel Tower fight, the car chase. The tagline, "The Rush is On," emphasized speed and fun. Television spots ran constantly during high viewership events, especially sports and entertainment shows, aiming for broad reach. The talent was deployed on a major press tour, with Tucker and Chan appearing on talk shows to reminisce about the earlier films and promote their reunion. This press played up the off-screen friendship and the long wait for the threequel, framing it as an event. The marketing also had to manage the risk of franchise fatigue by presenting the film not as a tired retread, but as a triumphant return and a fresh adventure. The emphasis on Paris was key to this, offering a visual and narrative hook that distinguished it from the previous Hong Kong and LA-based settings. The distribution strategy was a classic global day-and-date rollout, aiming to capture the late summer box office worldwide. It opened in the United States and Canada on August 10, 2007, and in most major international markets within the same week. This strategy was designed to create a unified global event, maximize opening weekend numbers, and stifle piracy by minimizing the delay between territories. The release timing was strategic. Late summer is often filled with franchise fare and family movies, and Rush Hour 3 positioned itself as an action comedy alternative for teens and adults. The studio, New Line Cinema, under Warner Brothers, utilized its extensive international distribution pipelines to ensure the film was omnipresent. The marketing also tailored materials for different regions, emphasizing Chan more in Asian markets and Tucker more domestically. Post-release, the marketing narrative had to quickly pivot to address the film's performance. While it opened to a strong $49.1 million domestically, the steep second weekend drop signaled weak word of mouth and potential disappointment. The marketing response was to double down on the international appeal, where the film was performing relatively better. Ads began to highlight the global box office totals and continued to push the spectacle of the Parisian locations. However, the campaign lacked a secondary narrative, like critical acclaim or award buzz, to sustain momentum. The film's mediocre reviews meant the marketing couldn't effectively pivot to a quality play. Instead, it relied on initial brand recognition and the gradual accumulation of international grosses. The ancillary marketing for the DVD release later in the year will follow the standard playbook, emphasizing unrated footage, bloopers, the staple of Chan's films, and behind-the-scenes looks at the Parisian stunts. The ultimate legacy of the Rush Hour 3 marketing campaign is as a case study in the limits of pure brand power. The campaign successfully achieved its primary goal. It reactivated the franchise in the public consciousness and drove a sizable opening weekend. It effectively communicated the product's features, stars, location, action. However, it could not overcome the product's inherent limitations, the sense of diminishing returns and creative exhaustion that critics and audiences felt. The marketing was a powerful engine attached to an average vehicle. It generated initial velocity, but the vehicle itself couldn't maintain the speed. The campaign's ROI was ultimately capped by the film's own qualitative and financial parameters. It proved that even with a massive marketing spend, you cannot market a film into being a beloved classic if the core product is perceived as a competent but unnecessary sequel. The market analytics delivered a clear verdict. The franchise had reached its commercial and creative asymptote, and no amount of marketing could push it significantly higher. The critical reception of Rush Hour 3 was a collective sigh of resignation, a widespread acknowledgement of a franchise operating on autopilot. Reviews were not vitriolic but dismissive, characterizing the film as a tired, formulaic, and excessively costly retread. Major publications like the New York Times, Variety, and Entertainment Weekly noted the palpable lack of inspiration, the reliance on stale jokes, and the diminishing returns of the Chan-Tucker dynamic. Critics pointed out that the magic of the original's cultural collision had calcified into a predictable routine, and the shift to Paris felt like a scenic distraction rather than a narrative necessity. The consensus was that the film was professionally made but utterly soulless, a product of corporate calculation rather than creative passion. This critical panning performed a specific economic function. It provided a quality signal that matched the audience's growing sense of franchise fatigue. While not damaging enough to deter the core fan base from opening weekend, it severely hampered the positive word-of-mouth essential for long legs. The reviews framed the film not as an event, but as a contractual obligation, effectively capping its cultural and box office potential. The award season trajectory for Rush Hour 3 was non-existent, as expected for a summer action comedy sequel of its type. It received 0 nominations from major industry awards like the Oscars, Golden Globes, or even the MTV Movie Awards beyond maybe a single pop culture category. This absence is a critical data point in the film's legacy. In the ecosystem of Hollywood validation, the film generated no cultural capital. It did not achieve the technical recognition that sometimes greets high-grossing blockbusters, e.g. visual effects or sound editing nominations, because its technical achievements, while competent, were not considered innovative. It did not garner any recognition for its stars, as the performances were seen as replays of established personas. This awards vacuum reinforced the film's status as pure commodity, consumable, profitable in the short term, but devoid of the artistic or technical distinction that warrants industry celebration or long-term critical reverence. The legacy forecast from 2007 would have been accurately pessimistic. Analysts would have seen the declining box office multiplier, the weak critical response, and the massive budget, and predict the franchise would enter a deep freeze. The film's legacy is primarily as a cautionary benchmark in franchise economics. It is cited in industry discussions about the point where star salaries and production inflation outpace audience interest, leading to marginal profitability. Culturally, it left almost no footprint. It spawned no memorable quotes that entered the lexicon, unlike the originals. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? It did not redefine or even meaningfully contribute to the buddy cop or action comedy genres. Its most lasting image might be the poster of Chan and Tucker in front of the Eiffel Tower, a symbol of generic sequel escalation. For the careers of its principals, it marked an endpoint. For Tucker, it was his last major starring role for years. For Chan, it was another entry in his long list of Hollywood co-productions, but not a highlight. The long-term valuation of Rush Hour 3 as an asset is that of a depreciating franchise entry. In the library of Warner Brothers, which absorbed New Line, it is a mid-tier catalog title. It generates modest, ongoing revenue from television licensing, streaming deals, and occasional DVD sales, but it is not a crown jewel. Its financial underperformance relative to cost killed any momentum for a Rush Hour 4 for over a decade, until potential revival was discussed under radically different financial terms, likely much lower budgets and salaries. The film stands as a clear market correction. It demonstrated that audience goodwill has a limit, and that simply replicating a formula with more money does not guarantee proportional returns. Its value as a case study in managerial logistics and marketing might be higher for film students than its value as entertainment is for audiences. In the final analysis, Rush Hour 3's place in film history is as a data point, not a milestone. It is a graph line that peaks and then falls, illustrating the life cycle of a commercially driven franchise that failed to innovate. It did not ruin the legacy of the original Rush Hour, but it added nothing to it. The film's legacy is one of silence, the absence of clamor for more, the absence of fond recollection, the absence of cultural resonance. It achieved a remarkable feat of spending $140 million to create something that feels instantly disposable, a perfect example of film that was made because the numbers from the previous installments suggested it could be, not because there was a story that needed to be told. Its forecast is one of obscurity, a professionally crafted product that fulfilled its narrow commercial purpose and then receded into the vast stream of content, a testament to the fact that in cinema, execution without inspiration yields a result that is technically present but creatively absent. As the blooper reel plays over credits and the final gag fades, Rush Hour 3 concludes not with resonant chord, but with the hum of a machine powering down. There is no emotional echo, no lingering question, only the satisfaction of a product that has delivered its specified runtime of jokes and stunts. This final, weightless feeling is the film's ultimate achievement and its fundamental limitation. It is a harmony of a perfectly calibrated commercial engine, one that mixes star power, location glamour, and professional stuntcraft into a predictable, consumable syrup. Yet, this harmony is sterile. It resonates in the wallet of a studio accountant, not in the heart or mind of the viewer. The film completes its arc by reaffirming that its universe is one of consequence-free action and frictionless comedy, a closed loop where every problem is physical, every solution is a punch or a punchline, and no character is ever truly changed by the experience. The door doesn't close on a tragedy, as in The Godfather. It simply remains open, waiting for next franchise entry that may never come. Our deep dive into this film has been an autopsy of a blockbuster product at the end of its natural commercial life cycle. We have seen how a $140 million budget is allocated not towards artistic risk, but towards risk mitigation, securing stars, securing locations, and replicating past successes. We dissected the technology of polished cinematography, hyperreal sound, and hybrid stunt work, all in service of maintaining a brand's familiar feel. We mapped the behavioral economics of nostalgia, where audience goodwill is a depleting asset carefully spent on familiar routines. We analyzed the production management of a globe-trotting enterprise focused on logistical triumph over creative inspiration, and a marketing strategy that successfully sold a sense of event for a product that felt like a routine transaction. At every stage, Rush Hour 3 functioned as an industrial process, prioritizing the preservation of a formula over the exploration of new territory. Reflecting on the core trinity of art, technology, and capital, we see a distorted loop. In this case, capital was the dominant driving force. The financial imperative to revive a profitable franchise, $140 million in capital, dictated the form of the art, a safe, replicated sequel. That art then demanded a specific high-polished technology, location shooting, CGI-enhanced stunts, dense sound design, to meet audience expectations for a modern blockbuster. However, unlike a virtuous cycle, this one lacked a generative spark. The technology served to embellish, not to enable new artistic expression. The resulting art did not generate significant new cultural or emotional capital. It merely converted financial capital into a modest, diminishing financial return. The loop is closed, but it does not elevate. It merely sustains at a high cost, demonstrating that when capital leaves without artistic vision, the result is competent, costly, and ultimately forgettable consumption. For us, the audience, the lesson of Rush Hour 3 is about the economics of our own attention. The film represents the end point of a purely transactional view of entertainment. It asks for our time and money and offers a reliable, if uninspired, package in return. It does not seek to challenge, move, or surprise us. It seeks to satisfy the bare minimum requirements of the genre contract. Engaging with it is a passive act. We are not implicated in its world, because its world has no moral or emotional gravity. Our takeaway is an understanding of the sheer industrial might required to produce something so lightweight, and a recognition of the subtle fatigue that sets in when familiar stories are told without new passion or perspective. So, as we conclude this analysis, we are left not with the beauty of cinema, but with a stark understanding of its business. Rush Hour 3 endures not as a film, but as a case file. It is a permanent record of a moment when a franchise reached its financial and creative asymptote. It reminds us that laughter and excitement can be engineered at a massive scale, but that without the alchemy of genuine inspiration, they evaporate upon contact with air, leaving behind only the memory of a large expenditure. It stands as a monument to the fact that in the vast landscape of film, there is room not only for art and revolution, but also for products smoothly assembled, widely distributed, and expertly designed to be experienced, enjoyed on a superficial level, and then seamlessly forgotten. If you found this deep dive meaningful, my literature-loving friends, consider liking and subscribing so we can keep decoding the business and beauty of cinema together.